This week I was talking to a woman, and although what we're going to chat about here didn't really happen to her, it always popped into my mind. And we were talking about bridal shows. And, bridal shows have been around forever. Lots of women go to bridal shows as part of their wedding preparation. And what a lot of women aren't aware of is that there's a lot of bad actors, a lot of bad photographers that use these bridal shows as sort of launching pads for their schemes. So whenever I hear someone going to like a bridal show, there's a few things I think they should know or be aware of, especially when it comes to photographers. And the situation usually kind of goes down like this. You go to the bridal show, you're looking at all the things that are there, all the different wedding vendors. You may even be talking or looking at a couple of photographers. And then you get home, and like the next day or so, you either get a call or you'll get an email that you've been selected. You've won a free boudoir shoot. And your initial thought is, boy, how lucky. But then you may think and saying, I don't remember entering to win any free boudoir shoot, so there could be a little bit of confusion at first. But the way that these calls or emails generally go down is that urgency. There's only a limited number of spots. We need to know if you're coming like right now. So right from the start, there's going to be a lot of pressure in getting you to commit to go to these sessions. So what happens next is, immediately you're thinking, oh, how lucky. And there's not going to be a lot of details. The email or the photographer, even if you call for somebody, they're going to be, oh, well, we'll talk about it there. We'll talk about it when you get in. I don't have time to talk about the details. It's a free shoot. You're the lucky winner. So right from the start, your radar should be telling you something is a little suspect about this. And if you agree to go in, you'll see immediately you'll get a request for money. You'll be asked to provide usually $50 or $100 to reserve your spot. And you'll be thinking, well, I thought this was a free session. Well, they do that because they can sign up 10 women on a day. If they don't charge any of them anything to come in, 1 out of the 10, 2 out of the 10 may actually show up because they have no commitment. So, they're going to get money from you up front to hold this very rare spot because there's only so many spots they're giving away. So that should be your first or second or third tip that something isn't quite the way that it should be. So even if you're thinking, I can understand, I'm going to hold the spot for $50. That way they know I'm going to come, but I'm still getting a free bridal session. And what's going to turn out is that's, of course, not really what happens. So you'll show up to this hotel location, and what the photographer has done is literally contact everybody that was at that bridal show that weekend. You may be thinking, well, how did they get my information? Well, when vendors sign up for these shows, they pay for their spot, and then often they're given, the lists of everybody who has subscribed or has committed to going to that show. They'll get phone numbers or emails and names. So that's how they got your name or email. And then they turn around and they're trying to fill who knows how many, 10 spots on a day, maybe 20 people over a weekend to come in for these free boudoir shoots. And they're trying to get, maximize their time. So they're going to charge you that $50 or $100 to come in. But little would you know that this really has less to do with you, less to do with your wedding, less to do with you getting sort of like a beautiful photo experience. And it just has more to do with them trying to get as much money as possible out of you in a really dirty and kind of underhanded way. And so the way that goes down, like I said, is usually they're going to not be very forthcoming on any details about this session. Because the less you know, the better. Because the more you know, the less likely you're going to want to show up and go to this hotel. So you'll arrive at the location. You'll be warmly greeted by a photographer, and you'll be thrown into your session. It'll be pretty quick. And like I said, it's not really about you or your wedding or getting you beautiful photos. It's more about them. And when your session is completed, what will happen is you'll be ushered into another hotel room. And this is where the real sort of squeeze begins. And what's going to happen there is often you'll be in a room with 2 or 3 other people, part of this photography crew. And that's when the real high pressure sales tactics start. And you'll be sit down, you'll be told how lucky you are for getting this free shoot, and how they want to provide you with a beautiful wedding gift. The catch is, suddenly this beautiful wedding gift that they're trying to get you is going to be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and they're going to try to get that from you right on the spot. They're going to tell you, oh, this is a limited time deal, and you have to take it now because the price goes way up. Act now. Your photos are so great. How can you skimp on your wedding event? How can you skip on this important day on your life? So ultimately what happens is a certain percentage of those women that go in, cave into this pressure, and really wind up getting taken for sometimes $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 or so from a free boudoir shoot. And then they leave, go home, and really wasn't quite the experience that they thought it would be. And I think it turns out that they feel bad about it, and it really wasn't the cute free boudoir session that they thought. So usually these photographers that do this, they travel on the bridal boudoir circuit, and the next weekend they're in another town, and the next weekend they're in another town, doing the same thing over and over and over again. And of course, people get really angry about this process, really upset about what happened to them, how their free session turned into a high-pressure sales tactic. And, they reach out and they start to leave bad reviews for these photographers, and they want their money back or so forth and so on. And why wouldn't you? You just got really taken advantage of. But these photographers, being that this is their game, they're usually a step ahead. And so what they do is they frequently are changing the names of their company. So one week they're XYZ Photography, the next week they're ABC Photography, and they just keep changing their name to stay one step ahead of the people trying to track them down. And it's really a bad situation for a lot of women. And this was something that really happened like a long time ago, way before social media, way before like YouTube and stuff like that. And now it's back, and it's still going on. And I've been hearing these stories that, women are still getting roped into these really expensive sessions. So you're saying, like, what can I do? What can I do to protect myself? And if you stop and think, immediately you'd say to yourself, why would a photographer work for free? Why would anybody work for free? Photography is a business just like anything else. So the immediate tip-off is, why would they be giving you lots of stuff and a whole wedding gift for no cost? And number two, maybe that money you have to pay up front to hold the spot. That should tip you off as well. And then another thing that you should really think about is, if these photographers are not willing to tell you about what's going on in this session, if they keep telling you, oh, we'll talk about it later, and keep telling you not to ask so many questions, or they don't want to give you any details, they don't want to give you the cost of anything, or ultimately what you're going to have to spend, that should be a really big red flag. if someone's not willing to disclose to you what this session is all about, after all, it's your session. You should know the details. So that's what they're certainly going to do, is obfuscate and give you as little information as possible. And then lastly, one thing you have to do is get the name of the photography company and do some work. Look into them. See if there's any positive or negative reviews. See how long they've been online. Check to see if this is their modus operandi. Is this what they do? Are there other people saying, hey, they got me? Or hey, this happened to me? So you have to do a little work. But unfortunately, there's a lot of women that get that free. They hear that free, and everything sort of like after that does not compute to them. And they don't pick up on any of these signs. And then they go into these sessions, and not that they're always in physical danger, but they may walk out of that hotel room several $1,000s, in debt, which may be several $1,000s they don't have, and they could have put towards their weddings, or maybe even buying a house. So be really careful when you're on that bridal boudoir scene and people will start offering you free photo sessions, especially free boudoir sessions. What you really need to do is take a step back, start connecting the dots, ask some questions. And if these photographers don't want to tell you exactly what's going on or what the session involves, don't go, because you're really going to be better off. Find yourself a legitimate boudoir photographer that's going to talk about the whole session with you. You're going to know up front what you're getting involved in. Yeah, and I get it. Like I said, the word free is very enticing, but ultimately that free session really didn't turn out to be so free for a lot of people, did it? So that's what I got for you today. Just be wary. As you can see, I'm out here in the forest enjoying the warm weather, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.